Hi everyone and welcome to the Optimised Practice Podcast. I'm your host, Emma Price, and today I'm joined by Asgar Hassanali and Isabel Field from James Hallam Insurance. We're going to be discussing the pitfalls and the biggest mistakes that healthcare practices make around the topic of insurance. So welcome both, thanks very much. Asgar, do you want to introduce yourself to our audience?
Thank you very much, Emma. So I'm Asgar Hassanali. I'm a director of James Hallam Pro Med. I've been dealing with insurances in the healthcare sector now for the last 40 years. Our speciality is dealing with clients and helping them understand the risks they face, how to avoid the risk where they can't be avoided completely, how to find ways of offsetting them through insurance, etc.
Amazing. And Isabel?
My name's Isabel Field. I've worked at James Hallam for coming on 4 years now. My speciality is also within the healthcare sector, looking at business insurance, which is what we're going to have a focus on today. We work across a range of different healthcare professionals, but in particular, I help with businesses when they set up as multidisciplinary clinics.
Fantastic. We'll be needing your insight today for sure. Well, thank you both for joining me. Really looking forward to this one. So let's kick off. We'll start with Isabel. What is the biggest mistake that you find healthcare practice owners, particularly in the osteo, physio and podiatry world, what's the biggest mistake they make with regards to insurance?
Quite commonly, we notice that obviously within the physiotherapy, podiatry sector, insurance is a requirement for individuals, and when individuals start setting up as multidisciplinary clinics, they see that everyone has their own insurance and believe that that's sufficient because everyone's covered as an individual. But the problem comes down to the fact that when you start setting up as a legal entity, say a limited company or partnership, for instance, you're separating your business from yourself, and where it's a separate legal entity, it can be drawn into a claim within its own right. And a lot of individual insurances do not automatically extend to your business, especially when you have others engaged. So the biggest mistake per se that we see is that their individuals don't realise there's a need for business insurance because they're appropriately covered as an individual.
Right, I understand. Okay, so the limited company itself as an entity is at risk if it's not covered, and the insurance that the individuals hold doesn't apply to the limited company necessarily.
Yes, and often with claims, they will be directed to the limited company, as not always is the individual may not be working at the clinic anymore, for instance, and you can find that your liability as the company is then drawn into it and a claim will be directed to you instead. But Asgar's very well at speaking on this.
Yeah, that's good. Right.
So in the sector that Emma's talking about, which is MSK, sports therapy, dietary, a lot of the professionals are also used to having their own personal indemnity provided by the register to which they belong, whether it's the Royal College or whether it's the Institute of Osteopathy, the British Chiropractic Association, etc. And these insurance is quite complex, or can be quite complex, and sometimes there's a little bit of sort of, I know that by being on the register, I'm covered, therefore everything's okay. I've created a much bigger business now, and everybody who works for me, they're all got their own cover as well, so everything should be okay. It's a relatively fair assumption to make sometimes, but you're right. There is a biggest problem. When a claim comes in, the practitioner who caused the problem is now living in New Zealand, and the lawyers won't go away and they're not going to go to New Zealand with the claim, so they make the owner of the practice liable for what happened on those premises. And more often than not, they succeed as well. So there is what we call non-delegable liability. There is vicarious liability on the part of the business. And I think you are right, that probably is the biggest problem, is people think that we're okay because we're all covered. Our business is growing, but we're all individually protected with our little policies. Therefore, the business itself is. And that probably is the biggest mistake. And the consequences are quite serious, as we know. The businesses that tend to deal with the clean businesses that end up folding up because they get a big lawsuit which they can't manage through their own insurance policies. So It doesn't happen often, but when it happens, it's quite a complex issue. And I think outside of that, it's also probably fair to say that a lot of problems arise when businesses find it confusing to decide what is the right cover because there are different providers with different types of products. And usually, I think, like most of us, we go for what appears to be best value from a price perspective, but that's not necessarily the best product to suit your business. So that's probably the second area.
So how would they get around that then? If they've gone online and you're thinking, right, I'm going to get some medical negligence cover or malpractice cover for my new limited company. What mistakes are they making if they're doing that online? What's the importance of maybe using a broker or an expert?
I think it's a really good question. And yes, some of the online services are very good, but unless you know what you want and you are confident you've done your research, what you want, online doesn't necessarily work. You need someone to listen to what your business setup is and ask questions to fully understand where the risks are. Also, question you on where you're taking the business over the next 12, 24, 36 months so that the policy is not only suited for this moment in time, but allows the flexibility for you to go along your business plan route without insurance becoming an issue. So that's where the broker comes in. It's that conversation, that trust that builds up, that understanding of each other's needs.
Exactly. So that's coming on to my next question, which is perfectly landed. Thank you. So how should practice owners really start to think about growth, business growth? How should they think about insurance along the vein of business expansion and business growth? And particularly if they have a plan to sell their business, how should they think about insurance in that circumstance?
You see, you face this every day from businesses that contact you. What are the key things?
I think what's important is that there is some onus on the practice owner to understand the insurance that they are buying, because whilst a broker can guide you on how to find a product that grows with your business, we can only update the policy with the information we're informed of. And especially with medical malpractice policies, it's not one shoe fits all. So when there are changes to your business, new services, new practitioners, for instance, they're the areas that you need to be thinking, do I need to update my insurance policy? Because it is quite a niche type of insurance where a lot of information, a lot of conversation is needed. So I think practice owners need to understand their insurance policy as a starting point, and then that really gives us room to help move the policy on as the policy grows.
What about selling? How should they think about insurance with a view? Let's say I want to sell my business in 5 years' time. What do I need to get in place? Is there a special policy, or is there something a buyer might want to know about my insurance?
M&A activity is so fluid in the healthcare sector. Small businesses become medium-sized businesses through mergers and acquisitions, and medium-sized businesses end up being the larger businesses. But I also think that if you can, from day one, protect your business in its entirety as best as you can from the point of view of if something were to go wrong, have I got the right route to have that business still continue and someone else pick up the damages because I've invested in insurance or I have invested in good legal contracts or whatever to offset the liability. Now, once you've done that at the point of sale, the new owner, a good lawyer dealing with the acquisition is going to want to know what is their client purchasing in terms of the future and what liabilities of the past are we going to end up with. It makes the sale so much easier if you can say all the past liabilities are ring fenced under an insurance policy that I have got. So any claim that comes in prior to the sale of the business for an event that took place in our business is covered fully and perpetually. It's not always possible to buy policies that are that fluid, but where for small businesses you try and make a policy on a claims occurrence basis, so any event that took place whilst you were the owner before the sale remains covered forever and ever. So the new owner can come up and say, this letter relates to an event that took place before I bought the business, sends it back to the original owner who sends it to us and we get it dealt with. In an ideal world, we try and do that for all small businesses. Some businesses it's not possible. The insurers will say, I don't want to take it on forever because I don't know what will come out. I'll rather do maximum 3 years, maximum 6 years after sale. So we can negotiate that. But it makes the job. We have seen businesses come to us saying, we got to the point of sale, but the new owners will not complete the transaction unless I can get cover. At that point, it's very difficult and very expensive. Supply and demand. Most insurers will say, if you have not bothered to insure the business properly for the 6 years you've owned it, what other problems have you left behind that we'll end up with as well? That's the perception they have. So it makes life a lot easier. It's not only the sale of the business. I think it's also as you grow and expand, you've got the peace of mind that the past is properly catered for. In healthcare, we get problems coming in. Most problems come in almost at the point of when things went wrong, but we do have the odd serious issue. You saw our client in December 2013, and this is what happened. And here we are, December 2026. We are now making this accusation against you because of what happened 13 years ago. It's not common, but it's not something that doesn't happen.
For those like me who are complete insurance novices, there are two types of insurance, aren't there? On a basic level, there's sort of claims made and claims occurred. Yeah. So you can insure your business retrospectively, is that what you're saying? But it's expensive.
Yeah, you can insure retrospectively. The insurers will need more information. So if depending how far back you want to go, they might sort of say, we want a list of everybody who worked for you. What due diligence did you undertake? Where were they insured? And is their policy still valid, etc.? So there's so much history. Whereas if it's been a continued renewal from when you started, it's a straightforward transfer of assets, and depending on what type of policy it was, claims made, claims occurrence, the new owners know exactly where they are, where they stand on it. And it's not, insurance is not an easy thing. And if I was running a healthcare business, I want to know about insurance. I want to make sure, but I don't want to understand it fully because I want to spend my brain power running the healthcare business. So that's when get a good broker. Let them negotiate for you. Let them explain to you in simple terms what it's all about.
And that's music to our ears because the Hive, we always say, like, let's get an expert in. I'm not going to give you advice on insurance. I'm not going to give you advice on HR law. Let's get an expert in. So this is great. This is why we're having this conversation because, we're really passionate about partnering with the experts because I would never dream to even start a conversation about insurance. I'd just be like, right, just email Asgar or Isabel, that's fine. Isabel, have you got any other further points about sales or anything? Because a lot of healthcare practice owners obviously go into business to have a great lifestyle business, of course, and that's what we do at the Hive to teach them that. But some do want to sell, and that is their ultimate goal. So is there any sort of top tips or any information that you want to pass on?
It's mostly just touching on what Asgar's already said. Insurance, it is becoming a question that is commonly asked when you look to sell your business now. As Asgar rightly said, it can become an issue sometimes when you go to complete the sale and the new owner realises that they're actually taking on 20 years worth of risk that there was no insurance in place for. So it is just the emphasis on getting that insurance in place as soon as you can so that as and when the day comes, if you do want to sell your business, it minimises the complications for you.
And everyone wants a smooth sale if they're going to go there. It's complicated enough, right? Moving on swiftly. Let's start with Isabel. What's the most common claim you see? Let's dig into it a little bit. What do you guys normally see in the physio, osteo, and podiatry world? What are the most common sort of topic surrounding a claim?
There are claims that we see more often than not. So, for example, surrounding needles, acupuncture, so pneumothorax claims, or in relation to podiatry, infections from treatment, whether that's from aftercare or the treatment itself. It's really difficult to predict a claim as and when it comes in or what it'll be in relation to.
what advice would you give them to reduce the risk around that then? Those common things, how are we going to mitigate against those sorts of risks?
I'd be right in saying that, leaving aside that everybody is suitably qualified, trained, and extremely competent, the biggest cause of claims is a disparity between the patient's expectation and the practitioner's intention. Communication. Yeah. The patient wanted to wake up in the morning pain-free, but woke up in the morning even stiffer than they were yesterday. If that was explained that, yes, you'll be better in a week's time, but the next few days might be a bit sore because of what I've just done, it's quite normal. That sort of explanation, the good practitioners with very little patient conflict spend more and more time making sure the patient understands the consequences of the treatment, the timelines involved, etc., and annotates it.
Perfect. So good quality discussions and good quality discussion notes, isn't it, really? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it comes down to education and communication. I think it's really important to know your boundaries, and when you're with the patient and you're not completely confident on what the course of treatment should be. So it's at that point stepping back and saying, I need to speak to somebody else to get a second opinion on this, because it can be quite intimidating with patients to say, I'm not sure on the answer right this second. So I think communication, especially with your team around you, is a really important area that can help avoid these situations, because two minds coming together with the same opinion is a bit more reassuring than guessing the answer.
I really like that. I like the way you've nailed it there. That's really hit home for me. It's quality and communication. Note taking, I'm sure, is a big part of this because that's what's going to protect you. But then just meeting those expectations. Yeah.
Yeah, consent, understanding, recording of what was said, what was done. And I think there was a doctor that once said to me that if you have a relationship with the patients where they always expect you to do the best for them, when it all goes wrong, they'll forgive you because you did your best. If you don't have that relationship, the slightest thing will irk them and will result in a more complex complaint. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. But we're all humans, each to their own. And I think as long as the foundation is there in terms of, if you're going to start using acupuncture needles, you haven't done an online course with 2 hours in person. It's been spread over a period of time with competency gained over a period of time, knowledge gained, etc., and you have those skills, then it comes down to communication. So we do get some problems. I would say that probably 50-50, we get some problem where it's lack of training, lack of adequate knowledge, especially when it comes to the use of new technology, new tools in the delivery of treatments. Sometimes people's understanding of those devices is a little bit limited. Sometimes their knowledge about maintaining the device and keeping it in good working order is limited, so that causes problems as well.
Yeah, it's a really good point as well. You know, that there are always new technologies, and I think we've got to make sure that we're adequately educating ourselves constantly and understanding the consequences of that new technology. But I think you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, this is all about communication, isn't it? It's communicating with your insurer to let them know you've got this new thing. You know, it's communicating with your patient and communicating with your board, whether it's the Royal College or the Institute or whatever it is, you know, actually just having that open channel of communication, like, I'm doing this, is this okay? Because when a problem occurs, if everyone's in the loop, when everyone's looped in, you are ultimately more protected, right?
Perfectly summarized. It is, you know, and for us, in order to advise our clients properly and get the right product, it's all about communicating with them as well. And we need to help them understand our world and what it means to their world. And you're right, you know, practitioner, patient, insurance broker, clinics, insurers and brokers, we all got to bring it down so there's a common understanding of expectations and intentions are being met.
Well, we're almost out of time. Isabel, have you got any final words of wisdom that you want to impart upon potential client or healthcare practice owners?
I think what we always push is there's no silly questions. We always recommend asking when you're unsure, whether that's down to insurance and it's a question for us, or with your professional body with regards to scope of practice. When it's healthcare and somebody's body and injury on the line, there is no silly question. It's always better to ask a question if you're unsure. So that would be my words of wisdom.
Love that.
That's very well put. And we don't always know the answer, but we do our best to find it for you.
Well, exactly. We're all human, we're all fallible, but yeah, we've just got to do our best and have a good, honest go, right? A good rule for life, isn't it? Well, thank you both. That's all for this episode of the Optimised Practice Podcast. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to our podcast on Spotify or YouTube so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to follow us on social media. If you want to help building your practice, please reach out to us here at the Hive so we can show you how to build a profitable, stable, and highly respected practice that can ultimately work without your daily input. Thanks, everyone, and see you in the next episode.